Welcome back to Blacklit Memory. Tonight, I want to share with you 10 Halloween stories, each one unfolding in a ghost town long forgotten, where the last resident either left or never really did. Out there, jack-o'-lanterns still flicker on broken porches. Doors stay unlocked as if waiting. And folks say that on October 31st, some towns that vanish from the map come back just long enough to welcome those who don't know better. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and let me know where you're listening from, because one of these stories might have started not far from where you are. Thank you for being here. Now then, let's begin. We thought it was just a Halloween dare. One night, 4 of us, some cameras, and a ghost town with a creepy backstory. It sounded perfect for the kind of low-budget horror vlog I'd been trying to build for months. Silverwick was the name. A forgotten mining town somewhere up in Pennsylvania, swallowed by trees and memory. We rolled in just before dusk, our tires crunching over broken asphalt and fallen leaves. The cold cutting fast once the sun dipped behind the hills. May cranked up her hoodie. Carter pulled out his handheld, and Jess started narrating in her fake horror voice. The buildings looked like movie props. Wood sagging, windows boarded, Halloween banners still hanging in tatters like cobwebs. We parked near what used to be the general store. First thing I noticed, no glass anywhere. The windows were just empty frames. Our own car's side mirrors had been cracked somehow on the way up. Both of them clean splits down the middle. I thought we hit something, but there were no marks. Jess pointed it out first. You notice there's, no mirrors. Anywhere. In Tenton, Carter grinned. Vampire town. No reflections allowed. The pacendes send us as the Myfra's house. We laughed. But something about it stuck. It was subtle at first. That creeping quiet you get when your brain starts noticing gaps. We set up inside the general store. Floorboards creaked like bones under every step. I filmed some B-roll, panned across old shelves and broken crates, trying to catch something atmospheric. The freezer in the back had a door that still held some shine, a dull smear of metal that caught the light. That was when I saw it, a shape behind me, my own body, only it didn't move when I turned. I snapped around, fast. Nothing. Just the freezer door, now fogged from my breath. I didn't say anything. Not right away. The others were still laughing about some old Halloween display they'd found in a side room. A plastic skeleton half melted from heat or time. I told myself I had imagined it. Maybe I moved wrong. Maybe the angle was weird. But I kept checking that door, just to be sure. We started filming our intro around 8. May lit some candles for mood, and Jess pulled out a set of dollar store costumes. Carter had set up his infrared camera, hoping we'd catch ghost readings for the vlog. The air kept getting colder. Our breath hung like smoke with every word. Later, while reviewing a take, May stopped mid-laugh. "Did you hear that?" she asked. We went still. The store creaked again, deeper this time, like something shifting above us. Then we heard it, May's voice, whispering from the hallway behind her, only she hadn't said anything. We ran to check, but the hall was empty. No source, no echo, just her voice, already fading, like it had been caught in a loop and was now unraveling. She looked pale when we came back. None of us joked about vampires anymore. Carter stopped recording a while later. He said his screen glitched. Showed him walking into a room before he actually did. I thought he was messing with us until I saw the footage. There he was, clear as day, turning a corner in the video while standing next to me in real life. Jess said her shadow didn't follow her right, that it lagged behind a step or two, like it had to remember where to go next. She laughed when she told us, but it didn't sound real. I was starting to feel the same thing, that small, slow shift from fun to wrong. Around 10, I went wandering with my handheld. I ended up near the old town hall. Most of it had collapsed, but the foyer was intact. Inside, on the wall, behind a shattered display case, I found a flyer. Silverwick Halloween Festival, Oct. 31st, 1970. Come see yourself as you truly are. And then capped it. The words made my skin crawl. It felt like more than a slogan, like a warning we were too late to understand. I snapped a photo, but when I checked it later, the flyer was just a blur. Midnight came fast. We had planned to stay up, maybe even do a fake seance for the camera. But something shifted in the air. It got still, like the whole town was holding a breath. That was when we noticed Jess wasn't with us anymore. We called her name, circled the building. No answer. Then, from behind the counter, her voice. "I'm here," it said. But it was wrong. The tone was flat. The words came too slow, like they had been played back from a tape. Carter turned the camera toward the hallway where the voice had come from. Nothing there. The beam from his flashlight barely reached the end. "Jess," he called again. The same voice answered. "I'm here." Boy, it was closer this time. I felt my hands go cold. May grabbed my arm. "We need to go," she whispered. And then I saw it. Out past the broken vending machine, through the cracked glass. Myself. It stood just beyond the edge of the parking lot, half lit by the moon. My own shape. Same jacket, same posture, but still, too still. And I swear, when I lifted my hand to rub my face, it did not move at all. I turned to May and Carter. "Do you see that?" I whispered, already backing away from the glass. Carter squinted, lifted his camera, but the screen glitched and went dark. The figure outside lifted its hand slowly, not waving, beckoning. I ran. Through the aisle, past shelves that tipped in the dark. May shouted something behind me, but my focus tunneled. My breath hitched, sharp in my throat. Carter screamed once, short, hard, and then nothing. I didn't stop until I reached the car. My fingers fumbled with the keys. I climbed into the front seat, slammed the door, locked it. Every window reflected darkness. I checked the rearview mirror, and my heart dropped. All the seats were empty, even mine. I blink. Once. The reflection stays still. My body is here. My hands are shaking on the wheel. But in the mirror, I am gone. I try the ignition. Nothing. Not even a cough. I hit the horn. It lets out a low, strangled wheeze and dies. Outside, the air thickens. My breath fogs the windshield, and through it, a face presses forward. Mine again, but not mine. The clothes are off. A shirt I have never worn. Eyes I don't recognize. It plants both palms on the hood and leans in, staring through the glass like I am the one trapped inside. I slide down into the footwell, crawl into the back, and open the trunk. It smells like dust and oil, but it feels safer somehow. I slam it shut from the inside. Darkness takes over. I stay there until morning. No voices. No footsteps. Just my own heartbeat and the memory of Carter screaming. When light finally touches the trees, I crawl out. The town is silent. No sign of the others. I walk from building to building, calling their names. Nothing answers. Our car sits where I left it, but the windshield is cracked now, clean across the center. I do not see my reflection in it anymore. Just sky, and trees, and a pale shape walking past behind me that vanishes when I turn. I never found Jess, or Carter, or May. Their phones were gone, the cameras too. Only mine was left in the passenger seat, still recording. I wiped the footage clean that same day. But a week later, something strange happened. A single frame, just one, keeps coming back. No matter how many times I delete it, no matter which device I use. It restores itself like a memory refusing to die. It is a still, from the vending machine glass. My face, smiling, but I never smiled that night. Not once. I went to the police the next day, told them about the town, about my friends, about what happened. I left out the reflection part. I knew how it would sound. They logged it as a missing persons report and sent a small team to Silverwick. 2 days later, they called me back. Said the roads were washed out. Said the town wasn't there. Not exactly. Just foundations, trees grown over the streets, and no sign of any buildings. I tried to go with them. I begged, but they wouldn't let me pass the barricade. A week later, I drove back alone. The road was still there, but the sign for Silverwick was gone. Nothing but forest. And yet, the screenshot keeps showing up. It's always the same frame. My face in the broken glass, smiling wide, like it knows something I never will. I just wanted a Halloween special, something weird enough to catch attention, creepy enough to trend. One video, a single overnight shoot in a dead town. I'd done dozens like it before. Abandoned malls, a collapsed mining dormitory, even that rusted-out amusement park in Oregon that everyone said was haunted but turned out to be full of possums. This was supposed to be the same. Clearview, Nevada, a nowhere place out in the desert with one long legend tied to a busted outdoor movie theater. Supposedly, Halloween night in 1983. They showed a film so disturbing that no one got up after it ended. They just stayed in their seats, staring forward. Police blamed heat stroke. Locals never went back. Which meant, of course, I had to. I got there a few hours before sundown. The town was just bones by then. Half a post office, the crumbling roof of a diner, and the theater lot surrounded by wind-bent fencing. Sand had half-buried most of the plastic chairs. A sun-bleached poster still flapped from the back gate. Halloween special, The End of You. I figured it was someone's idea of a joke. The air was dry but cold. Not the kind of cold you expect in the desert. Not sharp. More like something pulled heat from your skin slowly, without asking. I set up my gear near the old projection booth, which wasn't even a booth anymore. Just a concrete slab with a few bent poles. There were no wires, no power lines, no sign that anything had worked here in decades. That made it weirder when the screen turned on. I was unpacking my drone rig when it happened. Just a pale glow at first, like moonlight hitting the canvas. Then it brightened, slow and steady, until it glowed with a soft white light. Full screen, edge to edge. I hadn't powered anything yet. I hadn't even opened the battery case. I thought it might be the moon reflecting, but the moon was behind me. And the screen. It was shining from within. I stood up, camera still in hand. "Okay," I said out loud, half laughing. "Nice trick. Maybe someone had installed solar lighting. Maybe I wasn't the first to come looking for a scare." The screen flickered. No sound. No logo. Just static. And then, footage. Grainy, but familiar. I squinted at the screen, tilting my head. It was me. Walking across the sand. Same hoodie. Same camera bag. Same slight limp in my left knee from a bike accident 2 years back. It was me from maybe 2 hours ago. I turned the camera on and started filming the screen. I figured someone had tapped into my drone feed. Maybe spliced footage from an earlier shoot as a prank. But then the version of me on the screen stopped walking. He turned his head slightly and looked at someone just off camera. I hadn't done that. Not at any point. I paused the recording. A chill ran up my arms that had nothing to do with the wind. On screen, my copy reached into his backpack and pulled something out. A box cutter. Not my gear. Not something I brought. I walked backward, slowly, trying to keep the screen in view. The copy stared toward the edge of the frame, lips moving. There was no audio, but the movements looked too smooth to be random. He was talking to someone, or something. I turned around and walked back to the car. My gear stayed behind. I just wanted to leave. But when I looked over my shoulder one last time, the image on the screen had changed again. Now it showed me, running, toward the car, just like I was about to. I froze. I bolted. Sand flew behind me as I ran toward where I had parked. Flat lot, 20 feet from the back fence. Clear view of the open screen. But the car was gone. Just gone. I stopped, blinking against the wind, trying to make sense of it. In its place stood rows of theater chairs. Hundreds of them, all perfectly aligned across the dirt, facing the glowing screen. I hadn't seen those before. They weren't there when I set up. I spun in place, scanning for tire tracks, footprints, anything. The only prints in the sand were mine. No sound but the low hum from the screen. Then something moved in the rows ahead. Shapes. At first I thought they were statues. Halloween dummies. Maybe. Props left from an old shoot. But they shifted. Slow and subtle. Like heads nodding in sync. Each one wore some kind of mask. Plastic vampires. Rubber skulls. A few had party hats. And none of them faced me. Every single one was turned toward the screen. A chill crawled up my spine. I called out, "Hey, is this a prank? Are we filming something?" No one answered. I didn't expect them to. Even my own voice sounded small. Behind me, a clap. Just one. Crisp and sudden. It echoed too long. I turned toward the screen. The image had changed again. It was me, lying on the ground. The figure on the screen looked up, dazed. Dust streaked across his face. Then, from just outside the frame, something shoved him back down. My knees buckled. I turned and ran. But the ground slipped under me. Not like sand, more like carpet. Old theater carpet, worn and sticky. The rows of chairs stretched on, too far, too fast. The desert had folded in on itself, and now I was stuck inside some twisted auditorium. I tried to scream, but my throat tightened. The air felt thick, like it belonged to someone else. On screen, I saw my other self reach for the camera. Mouth moving, my own voice whispered somewhere near my ear, repeating the same words I could not remember saying. I reached the front row. The lights above the screen blink once, twice, then everything goes still. The projection shows a final image. My face, glitching, warping, splitting into jagged frames. My eyes too wide. My jaw frozen mid-yell. Then the image tears in half and dissolves into static. From the screen's glow, I saw them all turn. The seated figures. They looked at me, but I could not move. My legs locked in place. Something pushed at the back of my knees, gentle but firm. A seat rose beneath me. It had been waiting. The seat pressed up beneath me, the plastic cold against my legs. The screen flashed white, brighter than the desert sky, then black. Silence. When I opened my eyes, I was back in the car. Morning light spilled through the windshield. The wind had died. For a second, I thought I had made it out. I turned the key. The engine started. The world looked real again. Too real. Then I noticed the screen. It was still there in front of me, glowing faintly. And inside it, someone sat in my car. He looked up, smiled. A year later, some kid with a drone and a half-dead vlog found my camera, said he was just exploring ghost towns, stumbled on Clearview by mistake. There was no car, no tent, no gear, just that one broken camera on a plastic seat, facing the screen. The footage only had one file, less than a minute long. I was in frame, still, silent. My face pointed at the white screen, not blinking, not breathing. Behind me, every seat was filled. No one moved. At the end of the clip, someone stepped into the frame. It was me. and I sat down. Before we step into the next story, if you're still here, still listening, with the lights low, maybe drop a comment. Just tell me where you're listening from. It helps more than you know. All right, let's keep going. Halloween had just ended, but the decorations still clung to the houses like the night wasn't ready to let go. Paper ghosts dangled in front yards, porch lights flickered orange, and scarecrows leaned half-drunk against mailboxes. We were somewhere outside Asheville, North Carolina, the roads slick from cold drizzle, the fog sitting low like it didn't want us to leave. I was driving, one hand on the wheel, the other reaching for the last of the candy corn in the cup holder. My name's Mason Blake. I was 27 back then, freelancing in graphic design, mostly from wherever I could find decent Wi-Fi and cheap rent. Leah, my girlfriend, was 25. She had this sharp kind of humor and worked in environmental research. The kind of person who always packed an emergency kit and never let the gas tank dip below half. We had spent the weekend at a Halloween folk festival in the mountains. It was one of those quaint little things. Apple cider, old-time music, carved turnips instead of pumpkins. On the way home, we decided to take a longer route through eastern Tennessee, just to avoid the interstate. Somewhere along the way, I saw the sign for Wicklow Ridge and turned without thinking. Leah gave me a look, but didn't argue. She knew I had a thing for forgotten places, towns that faded off the map. Wicklow Ridge was one of those names I'd only ever heard in whispers, the kind of place people mentioned in bars or on weird travel forums. According to a thread I found months earlier, the whole town was abandoned in 1948 after a massive landslide, though the real story was stranger. Every single resident had supposedly vanished on election night. No bodies, no signs of struggle, just an empty main street and a row of ticking clocks. It was the kind of story I didn't really believe until I saw the fog. It came in thick around the edges of the road, curling over the pavement like smoke. The trees got denser, their limbs clawing at the sky, and the car dipped into a silence so full it felt like we had slipped underwater. My GPS froze, then blinked out completely. "You sure about this?" Leah asked, her voice low. "We'll just pass through," I said. "Quick detour." He's actually dazed in of once rather ways. I think I said it mostly for myself. As we crested a small ridge, the town came into view. What was left of it, anyway. Cracked pavement, buildings slumped against time, store signs missing letters. But in the middle of that silence, one thing stood out. A yellow light. At first, I thought it was someone's lantern or maybe a maintenance crew. But as we rolled closer, I saw a square brick building with a white wooden sign above the door. It read, in bold black paint, Pauling Station, October 31. "Thank you watching." That stopped us both. The building looked out of place, too intact, too clean, and there was a line of people standing outside. Maybe a dozen, completely still. I slowed the car. Leah sat up straighter. "Are those costumes?" "URA," in dazes. They looked like something from an old postcard. Men in wool, coats and fedoras, women in long skirts and gloves, some holding folded slips of paper. Nobody was on a phone. Nobody moved. "They're probably doing a reenactment," I said, though I didn't believe it. There were no cars, no cameras, no signs of staging, just silence and that soft yellow light spilling from the windows. "I don't like this, Mace," she said. "Let's just keep driving." The self-God, but I was already pulling over. I needed to see it up close. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was something else. I stepped out first, into the chill air. It smelled old, like dust and wet leaves. Leah followed reluctantly. She clutched her jacket tighter as we approached the building. The line of people didn't react to us. Not even a glance. The inside looked exactly like a polling station from 100 years ago. Wooden tables, A thick ledger book, a ballot box, a potbelly stove glowed in the corner, and behind the table sat a man in a gray suit, face pale and paper thin. "Excuse me," Leah said. "What year is this station supposed to represent?" "It is now south in this." The man didn't speak. He just turned the ledger toward us and pointed. I leaned over and felt my chest go cold. There it was. Leah Graves. Written in looping cursive. Already marked as voted. And the year beside her name, 1948. She stepped back, whispering, "No," over and over. When we turned around, the line outside had changed. They were all facing the door. Every one of them was staring directly at us. Eyes wide, unmoving. If you ever come across something that feels perfectly preserved in a place that should be long dead, don't go in. No matter how harmless it looks. No matter how quiet. Some doors never closed for a reason. We ran. I pushed the door open and shoved Leah ahead of me. But the moment she crossed the threshold, she vanished. No scream. No struggle. Just gone. I froze in the doorway, staring at the space where she had been. The night around me shifted. The light was gone. The line of people was gone. The building was dark. I was standing alone in a crumbling room, and in my hand was a single, yellowed ballot. The name on the line said, Leah Graves. There's a Nax fall. I called her name into the dark, over and over, until the cold stole the sound from my throat. I circled the building, kicked at the door, searched the line that was no longer there. But the fog pressed in like a weight, and I was the only one left. Just me and the slip of paper in my hand, the ink already starting to fade. The town was silent. Not just quiet, but drained of anything living. No wind, no insects, not even the creak of settling wood. I walked the cracked road alone, every step sounding louder than it should have. There was only one place left to go, a narrow path behind the building, almost hidden under vines, led past the collapsed shell of a church. Its stained glass was gone, frame rotted, bell tower leaning like it wanted to fall. And behind it, as if tucked away from the world, was a graveyard. The air shifted there, heavy, stale. The fog hung low between the stones, thick like breath on glass. Most of the graves were old, their names swallowed by moss and rain. But one row at the back was different. The earth there was turned, still fresh. 5 graves, all with dates that ended on October 31, 1948. I knew what I would find before I saw it. Still, my legs moved, pulling me closer. The 4th headstone stood tall, granite smooth and uncracked. The engraving too sharp for a place that had not seen life in decades. Leah Graves. Voted. October 31, 1948. I dropped to my knees. Dirt clung to my jeans, but I didn't feel it. My hands shook as they brushed the stone, trying to make the words say something else. Anything else. I said her name. Soft at first, then louder. I don't know how long I stayed there, but when I opened my fist, the ballot had crumbled into brittle flakes, like ash from a cold fire. Then came the sound. Footsteps. Not rushed, not clumsy, just one after another, deliberate, slow. I turned, and there she was. Leah stood just beyond the grave markers, her arms limp at her sides, face pale and blurred by the fog. Her eyes were open but did not see. Her lips parted slightly, but no breath came from them. Her dress still had a smear of mud near the hem. She looked exactly the same, yet nothing about her felt right. I rose slowly, my knees barely working. The fog seemed to swirl around her without touching her. She didn't blink, didn't speak, just stared straight through me. You never really believe it until it happens. That someone you love can stand right in front of you and not be there. Your heart recognizes them before your mind catches up. And by then, it is too late to run. I stepped forward, reached out, my fingers brushed her wrist. Her skin was cold, not like ice, but like the absence of anything warm. Her hand twitched. Then she turned away. She walked past the graves, slow and steady, disappearing into the trees beyond the church. I didn't follow. I couldn't. Some part of me knew if I did, I would never come back. I sat by the grave until the sky turned gray. The light came thin and colorless, like morning did not really want to return. When I finally stood, the town was gone. The buildings were rubble. The path behind the church was covered again in vines. No one believed me. They searched. No Leah. No polling station. No cemetery. Only me. That was a year ago. I moved back to the city. I tried to work again, tried to sleep. But every October, just before Halloween, a letter arrives at my door. No return address. No stamp. Inside, a sheet of old paper, folded once. A list of names, all marked, voted. It is a Facely in Tenzov, Noverdal, and each year, my name moves one space higher. I first read about it on a forum that specialized in dead towns and vanished traditions. One user, profile deleted a week later, posted a single photo, a blur of lights in the fog, with the caption, Eldridge Hollow, only on Halloween. No one could explain it. Every video posted after that came up corrupted. Every thread got locked. That was enough for me. I was 23 then, a senior studying folklore at State College. Always chasing things no one else cared to believe. The stranger, the festival, the more it pulled me in. I had written papers on midsummer fire dances in Finland and rice spirit parades in Laos. But this one felt different. It felt like something no one wanted me to see. Eldridge Hollow used to sit in a pocket of Tennessee forest, wiped off the map sometime in the 50s, after a fire or a flood, depending on who you asked. No highway signs pointed there anymore. But if you followed the old Ridgeway Trail past the Third Fork, there was still a road. Broken, overgrown, but still there. I arrived around 10:30 that night. The sky was thick with cloud, the moon trying and failing to get through. Fog curled up around the edges of the trees like smoke from an invisible fire. I killed my headlights as I pulled into what used to be the town square. And there it was. Lanterns. Strings of old carnival flags. Music. Soft and distant, like it was coming from a radio lost in time. The sound of violins and a low rhythmic drum that beat just a little too slowly. The town around it was still broken. Roofs caved in. Walls eaten by ivy. But right in the center, in perfect contrast, was a living, breathing Halloween festival. If you could call it living. Everyone was wearing masks. Not the plastic kind you buy at a party store, but handmade, carved, painted. Some chipped at the edges like they had been worn for years. Animal faces. Blank porcelain, grinning wood. No one spoke. No one even looked directly at one another. But they danced. I stood there for a minute, watching, trying to understand what I was seeing. Then someone turned toward me. Tall, wearing a long coat and a mask shaped like a crow. They said nothing, just offered a small, wooden mask held out in both hands. It was heavier than it looked. I took it without thinking. The wood smelled fresh, like it had just been carved. The inside was smooth but cool to the touch. I held it up, hesitated, then slid it over my face. Everything changed. Sound dulled instantly, like my ears were underwater. But the light sharpened. The lanterns burned brighter. I could see every crack in the cobblestone, every thread in the fabric of the dancers' clothes. The people around me moved more slowly now, as if they were gliding instead of stepping. And their masks began to fade. Not fall off. Fade. What was underneath wasn't skin. At first it looked like shadow, a trick of the light, Then I saw it clearer. Where there should have been eyes, there were only hollow sockets. No cheeks, no lips, just smooth, pale nothingness. Faces that never existed. My chest tightened. I reached for the straps of the mask, tried to pull it off, but it would not move. The leather had gone stiff. The knots behind my head felt wet, like they had melted into my hair. That was when she appeared. A woman in a cat mask, delicate, gold-edged, staring straight at me through the blur. She leaned in so close, I could hear her whisper through the wood. "If you take it off before midnight, you will never have a face again." And the ear knows. Then the first bell rang. Clear, loud, distant. One chime. Then another. And the dancers stopped. Every masked figure turned in perfect silence, facing me. They were no longer wearing masks. I backed away without thinking, nearly tripping over the uneven stones beneath my feet. The figures were still, not moving, just watching me with those smooth, empty faces. The music had stopped. Even the lanterns seemed to flicker slower, like time itself was hesitating. I turned and ran. I didn't know where I was going. The square blurred behind me as I slipped through an alley of collapsed walls and leaning fences. The fog grew thicker again, swallowing the buildings whole, until I found myself in front of a long wooden structure that looked like it had once been a town hall. The door creaked open when I pushed it. Inside, the smell of aged wood and dust curled into my throat. No lights, no people, just moonlight through a cracked window and the sound of something creaking above me. Then I saw them. Masks, dozens of them, hung on the walls like trophies, all different shapes, some laughing, some snarling, some completely blank. Beneath each one, a name carved into the wood. Names that did not look old. Names that belonged to real people. My own name was there. Logan Myers. Burned deep into the wood beneath a plain, expressionless mask. The same shape I now wore. I staggered back, heart pounding. My skin tingled. My breath felt wrong, too shallow, like it was being pulled from somewhere else. I caught sight of something across the room, a tall mirror, warped around the edges, leaning against the far wall. I stepped toward it. At first, I saw nothing but my outline. Then I leaned closer. My reflection did not blink. The mask was still on my face, but it was changing. The surface rippled, shimmered slightly, and then it began to vanish. Piece by piece, the wood peeled back into my skin, and where my eyes should have been, there was nothing. Just blank space, smooth as polished bone. I screamed, or thought I did. No sound came out. Then I heard the voice, not out loud, but inside. "You have danced. You have worn the mask. Now you belong." I fell forward, clutching my face, but my hands felt no features. No mouth, no nose, no eyes, only a cold surface, smooth and foreign. The voice came again. "You are part of the hollow now." And then everything went dark. They found my car 2 days later, parked on the side of the road with the key still in the ignition. The battery was dead. My phone was in the passenger seat, but every video was corrupted, just static and silence. No one believed what little I had told friends before I went. They called it an accident, maybe a runaway, just another college kid who got too deep into a story and vanished. But a year later, someone else found Eldridge Hollow. They said it appeared in the fog just like the forums claimed. Lanterns, music, masks, and among the dancers, standing still in the corner, was one they did not recognize. Taller than the others, brown hair, a smooth, featureless mask. Someone whispered, "He's new. Just last year. They dats in dats." I came for the photo. That was all it was meant to be. One shot of the old train station at Black Hollow, framed just right, Mist curling around the tracks. Maybe a raven perched on the rusted signal post if I got lucky. Something that would fit the closing piece for my Halloween set. Lost memory. Forgotten rails. My name's Nolan Hayes. I was 31 that fall. A mechanic by trade, but a photographer by need. I had spent the last 4 years chasing forgotten places. Abandoned mills. Old schoolhouses. Places that once pulsed with life and now sat still in the dust. Black Hollow had been on my list for a while, but I saved it for Halloween night. There was a story, of course. A coal town in the Colorado mountains, emptied out after a train jumped the rails in 1913 and plunged into the gorge below. 62 dead. The line was shut down after that, and the town went quiet. But the station still stood. Barely. By the time I reached it, the sun had already dipped below the ridge. The wooden frame of the platform was weathered to silver gray, caved in on one side, like an animal had clawed through it. Grass pushed through the gravel, dry and yellow. The tracks themselves had warped, split in places, but still led straight out into nothing. A broken sign swung above the platform. Its letters faded. The station clock had stopped at 11:57, just like the story said. The cold came in hard after sunset. I set up camp right on the edge of the platform, zipped my coat tight, and pulled out my gear. I took a dozen shots of the station under twilight, catching the way the fog settled in over the distant hills. It felt timeless, unsettled. One frame caught my attention, a shot of the west end of the platform, zoomed in on the corner of a rusted boxcar that had been left to rot. There was someone standing next to it. I zoomed in. Grainy, shadowed, looked like a man in an old coat, facing away from the camera. But when I looked back in that direction, there was no one there. Just wind and empty space. I stayed still for a long moment. Then I shook it off. Could have been a trick of the light. Could have been my own shadow, doubled in the lens. But I kept the photo. I stayed up past 10, listening to the wind thread its way through the broken cars. Sometimes it caught the metal just right and made a sound like a bow pulling across a cello string, low and aching. At some point, I started reviewing the shots I had taken. Most were fine. A few had strange static in the frame. Lines, white flecks, like the image was decaying. And in one or two, that figure showed up again. Never clear, never facing the lens. I checked the power source. Batteries full. No weather interference. But the shots still looked wrong. At 11:40, I saw the light. Soft at first. Gold. Almost warm. It bloomed across the edge of the platform like someone had flipped on an old gas lamp. I looked around. No generator. No bulbs. Nothing. Then the rails began to hum. And far down the mountain, I heard it. A train whistle. The sound rose slowly, like it was pushing through layers of time to reach me. Not the deep diesel horn you hear today. This was sharper, older, echoing off the cliffs in a way that made the hair on my arm stand up. I stepped out from my tent without thinking, camera still in hand. Heart suddenly too loud in my chest. Then it came. Steel on steel, screeching through the cold. A full locomotive rolled into view, headlights blazing soft gold, steam hissing from beneath its wheels, paint chipped but intact. The number 13 stenciled cleanly across the side. It stopped right in front of me. The doors opened with a soft hiss. Inside, silhouettes shifted behind the frosted windows. Faces pressed close. I could not make them out, but I felt them looking. A figure stepped down from the train. A man in a conductor's uniform from another century. Crisp blue fabric. Gold buttons, dulled by time. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "Ticket, sir." Itself. I did not speak. I could not. The camera slipped from my fingers and landed softly on the frost-dusted wood. I backed away, slowly, every step feeling like it took too long. Then I felt something slip out of my coat pocket. A piece of card, rectangular, Heavy paper stock. I picked it up. There it was. My name printed in deep black ink. Nolan Hayes. Train No. 13. October 31. 1913. I ran. My breath fogged in the air as I darted down the platform and through the skeletal remains of the warehouse nearby. I slammed the door shut behind me, chest heaving, heart hammering. The air inside was thick with dust and cold like a locked cellar. I leaned against the wall, trying to catch my breath. Then I saw them. Photos. Dozens of them. Some pinned. Some drifting down from the rafters like leaves caught in slow wind. Black and white portraits. All of them formal. All of them stiff. Men. Women. Children. Faces blurred at the edges. Eyes staring. I stepped closer. One photo near the center of the wall stopped me cold. It was me, wearing a dark coat and stiff collar, hair slicked back in a style I never wore. But it was my face, unmistakably. I stood among a crowd at a train platform, looking directly at the camera. The photo was yellowing, cracked at the corners. Behind me, the train whistle blew again, louder this time, closer. Then came the voice, not from a person, but through a crackling speaker mounted high in the warehouse wall. The final train is departing. Last chance to restore order. And wit now, I turned. I don't know what I expected. Maybe a way out. Maybe a trick of the mind. But everything around me felt older now, like time had curled in on itself. I left the warehouse. The train was still there. Doors open. Steam rising from beneath its wheels like breath on a cold morning. I never stepped aboard, but I remember the feeling as it pulled away. A pressure, a sense that something was now missing, something I could not name. The next morning, a local hiking group found my tent and gear still on the platform. My camera was sitting on the bench, recording. The memory card was full of distorted footage, and in the last few frames, there was a photo. Printed, tucked under the strap. It showed the platform, and me, standing alone in front of the open train door. The image was torn down the middle. Now, every year, around Halloween, someone new comes through the nearest town. They always ask the same thing. Is this the way to Black Hollow Station? I need to be there before midnight. The actions of the coded with a nut 9. That one hit a little different. If these stories mean something to you, leave a like, subscribe, or share this video with someone who'd stay up to hear it too. And if you've got a true horror story of your own, my email's in the description. Now, story 6. We were just trying to escape it. The noise, the costumes, the fake cobwebs on every porch. Halloween had turned into something exhausting. So the three of us, me, Bryce, and Kayla, packed our gear, killed our phones, and drove out past Elmsbrook with nothing but the smell of pine and the promise of silence. My name's Elijah Ward. I was 26 then, working remote tech support while slowly burning out in the city. Bryce was 27, all sarcasm and guitar riffs. And Kayla, 25, had this quiet steadiness that held the three of us in orbit. We had been friends since undergrad, back when staying up all night meant something more than stress and caffeine. The place we found was perfect. A clearing off an old fire road, right at the edge of what used to be Elmsbrook. A ghost town with half its structures swallowed by the woods. The trees grew tighter the deeper you went. But just outside the tree line stood an old radio relay station from the Second World War. Its antenna was snapped in half and rust climbed the walls like ivy. We set up our tents near the old transmission shed. There was no service, no bars, no Wi-Fi. Bryce cheered like we had won something. Kayla just smiled, wrapped in her oversized hoodie, warming her hands over the little camp stove. By 7, the sun was gone. It dropped behind the ridge like someone had shut off a lamp. Fog rolled in with the cold, fast and low, coating the grass in wet silver. There were no night sounds, no crickets, no wind, just this strange, weightless, quiet, like the whole forest was holding its breath. We ate in silence, passed around a thermos of spiked cider. Bryce tried telling a story about a haunted laundromat in Reno, but even he trailed off halfway through. I remember Kayla looking up at the antenna, its shape half dissolved in fog, and saying, "It's too quiet." In rounds as crowd. At 8:13, the radio in my car clicked on. It was the old portable I kept under the passenger seat. Not connected to the ignition, not even plugged in, but it crackled to life with the dull, broken hiss of static. We all turned. The display blinked. 13.1 FM. None of us moved at first. Bryce laughed. He said something about ghost frequencies and prank apps, but his voice was too forced. The static cleared for just a second, and then we heard it. A man's voice. Calm, measured. October 12. Kayla dreams of a hand dripping black resin. She has not told anyone. Thanks for watching. Kayla stiffened. Bryce blinked at her, then turned to me. Okay. Man. Nice trick. They worse as I, but I hadn't touched anything. The voice returned. October 17. Elijah writes a letter to his father but deletes it before hitting send. In Denzer, was Brompton. My mouth went dry. I never told him about that. Not even Kayla. I had written it at 2 in the morning. 4 paragraphs I could barely remember now, and dragged it into the trash without saving. Bryce leaned into the car window. This is pre-recorded. Right. It has to be. Why, in the true South? Then came the next line. October 24. Bryce stands outside the tent and says out loud he sometimes wishes he had never met them. He thinks no one hears. In his dark calm, Bryce went quiet. Really quiet. Kayla whispered, "How does it know?" "If you want plays." We stood there, the 3 of us, watching the fog wrap tighter around the car, the shed, even the trees. I tried to turn the dial. It would not move. Tried to shut it off. Nothing happened. The voice just kept going, reading pieces of us back to ourselves. Thoughts, memories, things we had buried so deep. I barely recognized some of them. That was when I started watching the clock, because something about the voice felt like it was counting down. At 9:52, the voice changed. No longer past tense. It spoke like it was standing among us. 9:52 p.m. Bryce has just stepped out of the tent. Elijah does not know where he is going. It's safe for 6. I looked around. The flap of the tent was open. Bryce's boots were gone. I called his name once. Then again. Nothing came back. I grabbed a flashlight, scanned the trees. The beam hit nothing but fog. Then the voice returned. 9:57 p.m. Kayla will open her eyes after hearing Bryce call her name from the tree line. But that is not Bryce. Ling Zephyr now. I dropped the flashlight, ran back to the tent. She was gone. The sleeping bag was still warm, the zipper undone. I shouted her name into the dark and only the fog answered. There was no sound of footsteps, no echo, just the weight of that voice filling every inch of air. I ran to the car, tried to rip the radio out of the dashboard. My fingers fumbled at the edges, but the voice kept going. 10:01 p.m. Elijah is striking the radio. He does not know he is already being recorded. And now, 8-channel fangs. I stumbled back, breathing hard. My hands were shaking. The fog outside the windshield was so thick it looked like a curtain drawn too tight. I slammed the door and locked it. The voice did not stop. It came through the speakers now. Clearer. Closer. 10:03 p.m. Elijah is reading this line. His heart is beating fast. His hands are trembling. He knows he is the last one. In today's. I stopped breathing. Something moved outside. A shape stepped close to the glass. Same height, same build. The face leaned in. It was me. Only the eyes were empty. Mouth slack. Headphones pressed against each ear. My own voice whispering something I could not hear. I closed my eyes. Then everything went quiet. A year later, someone caught the frequency again. A pirate radio collector said he was scanning for weather channels and picked up 13. One, by mistake. Only for a few seconds. Just enough to hear a voice say, "My name is Elijah Ward. If you are hearing this, turn it off. Now, it is already listening to you." Is 9. Every October, I made it a habit to chase down forgotten places. Not ghost towns in the tourist sense, but places truly cut off from memory. Little dots on maps that had vanished. Or should have. This time, I was working on a story called The Forgotten Towns of America, a kind of quiet obituary for places that no longer had voices. I was 32, freelancing after leaving my post as a history lecturer. I liked the solitude. I liked digging through records, tape reels, local myths that hadn't made it into books. There was a peace in the dead ends most people gave up on. But that Halloween, the story came looking for me. I found the first mention of it buried in a yellowing newspaper from 1952, misfiled under farm subsidies. A single paragraph, clipped and crooked, mentioned an unnamed township in western Pennsylvania being officially delisted. No census, no public vote, just erased. People stopped calling it by name and started calling it the blotted town, or the one that was pulled. This have you, the naft dandams, is it on the mander? I remember leaning back in my chair, smiling at the melodrama, like a Cold War rumor or some sleepy town council overreach. But the deeper I looked, the weirder it got. County records showed 0 residents past April 1950. No sale of land. No migration reports. Just silence. Some said the town's name had been cursed, that it shouldn't be spoken. Because if you did, something came back. Not something new, but something old. Something you'd already lost. At first, I thought it was just an echo of Appalachian folklore. Stories bend that way out here, especially when the trees are bare and the light gets thin. I wrote it down in my notes, urban legend style, strong local texture, needs fact-checking. Is use action. I shouldn't have said it aloud. It was late. I was in the state library archive, recording a voice memo for later transcription. I found a cracked photograph of a township sign in the background of a street photo, mostly hidden under vines and decay. I zoomed in, spelled out in rusted metal, the town's name. I read it once, quietly, into the recorder. Didn't think much of it. Not until the next day, when I tried to type the name into my article draft and the font glitched out. Each time I wrote it, the letters inverted or vanished, leaving only white gaps in the sentence. My cursor would freeze. Once, the screen flickered. Then, the letter came. No stamp, no return address. Just slid into my mailbox. On cream paper, folded once. I opened it. It was short, only 5 lines, but the handwriting stopped me cold. It was my mother's. I knew her writing, the way she curled her Y's, the flat tops of her A's. She died 3 years ago in hospice. Pancreatic cancer. The letter wasn't threatening. It just said, "Please don't go back. Some names are for remembering, not repeating." They sighed her. I didn't sleep much after that. Night after night, I heard her voice in dreams. Not the voice she used when she was well, but the one near the end. Breathy, thin, pulled from somewhere deep. She called my name like she was trying to find me in a fog. Sometimes she cried. Sometimes she was laughing, but her mouth didn't move. By the morning of October 30th, I drove out to the site. Western Pennsylvania, in late fall, smells like iron and bark. The trees had dropped most of their leaves. and the wind was sharp enough to bite through my coat. I brought my camera gear, 2 batteries, and the original letter folded in my jacket pocket. What I found wasn't even a town, just the bones of one. Foundations half swallowed by roots. A church with a collapsed roof and no bell. Asphalt so cracked it had veins. And every place a name should have been. Road signs, maps, directories. It had been burned away or carved out like infected tissue. Except one place. Behind the church was a stone wall, blackened by weather but intact. On it, carved freshly and deep, was the name I had spoken, as if someone had come and rewritten it where no one could miss it. I stepped forward, touched the stone. My fingers fit into the grooves of each letter. I said it again, and the wind stopped. Fog spills in now, though the sky above is clear. My breath shortens. I see a figure at the far end of the path. Long coat, slow steps, familiar gait. My stomach flips. She's getting closer. Closer. She looks up. Her face is the same as the last day I saw her. Waxy, tired, barely here. But her eyes are wide, too wide, and she does not blink. Her mouth parts. She does not speak. I do not remember how I ran, only that I did. The fog was thick enough to choke on, turning the air into a damp wall that pressed against my face. Every sound was muffled except for my own footsteps, hollow and uneven. When I reached the car, my hands shook too badly to fit the key into the ignition. The road out of the valley was a single line of cracked pavement curling through trees that looked wrong in the headlights. Branches leaned low, like arms bent to listen. I kept glancing into the rearview mirror, though I told myself not to. For a moment, I thought I saw her standing where the fog broke, small and still, her hands folded in front of her. By the time I reached the main highway, dawn was beginning to thin the dark. I stopped at a diner 2 towns over and sat there for hours without touching my coffee. The waitress asked if I was all right. I told her I had gotten lost in the hills. She nodded slowly, as if that explained everything. That night, October 31st, I locked every door in my apartment. I pulled the curtains tight, unplugged the router, and turned my phone face down. I kept thinking about her eyes, how they looked, not like something seeing, but something remembering. The clock crawled toward midnight. I sat at my desk, the same place where I had first spoken the name. I told myself that whatever I had seen was a trick of exhaustion and fog, that my mother was gone, and nothing could cross that kind of distance. Then the doorbell rang. It is almost midnight. I freeze. The chime echoes once, then again, softer, like someone brushing against the button instead of pressing it. Through the peephole, I see her, standing straight, head tilted slightly, eyes wide and still unblinking. I back away, my throat dry. I put on headphones, something instrumental to drown out the silence. I tell myself not to look again, not to speak, not to remember the name. I sit on the floor with my back against the wall until the music starts to distort. When I open my laptop to distract myself, the article is gone, every document replaced by something new. It looks like a diary, written in the first person, dated 3 years ago. The words blur together until I see her name, then mine, then sentences I have never read before. They are her words, her last days, her fears of forgetting who she was, how she wrote my name on the backs of envelopes to make sure she would remember me. The final line makes my skin go cold. It has remembered me. Now I will remember it. He's no saying from a fit, and beneath that, a new sentence appears, as if being typed in real time. It remembers you now. This face. I slam the laptop shut. The room feels heavier, the air pressing down on me. I turn every mirror to the wall, stuff a towel under the door, and sit awake until dawn. The city outside celebrates Halloween with fireworks and laughter, but my apartment stays silent. In the days that follow, I delete everything. Every file, every photo, every trace of that town, The letter from the mailbox burns to ash in my sink. I stop taking freelance assignments. I stop speaking names I do not recognize. But each year, as October turns, I get the same voicemail, always from an unknown number. The voice is low, cracked, breath-catching, like a memory breaking through water. It says the same thing every time. Do not forget my name. This is Mary Taxet. I keep the phone on silent now. I keep the mirrors covered and the curtains drawn. Some nights, I hear faint knocking on the other side of the door, slow and patient, as if the sound itself is remembering me. And sometimes, when I close my eyes, I see her hand against the glass, not knocking, writing, tracing letters I once spoke aloud and can never speak again. We left the city just after noon, costumes packed in the trunk, Ellie already wearing her little witch hat in the back seat. Rachel had made her promise not to spill juice on it before we even got to the festival. The drive should have been a couple hours through the hills, maybe 3, with the late October traffic. But around dusk, the GPS lost its mind and the signal died just past a cluster of twisted trees I didn't recognize. The main road narrowed without warning. The trees leaned closer, like they were whispering to each other. Rachel squinted at the dashboard. The gas light had come on, even though I'd topped off earlier that day. I remember saying something like, "It's just the hills." Gage probably tipped. In as one desulfation, that was the last normal thing I said for the rest of the night. I spotted the turnoff by accident. A single arrow-shaped sign with peeling paint and the words, "Full service. Honest fuel." The gravel road wound through fog that hadn't been there 5 minutes earlier. Ellie whispered from the back, "Why's it foggy, Daddy?" And I told her we were almost out of it. I did not believe that. The station looked like something from a postcard that had sat too long in a drawer. Faded blue awning, round, glass pumps. It's a convenience store, no bigger than our garage. The overhead lights buzzed a soft yellow, and one of them flickered. A man sat out front, slouched in a folding chair, arms limp at his sides, wearing a blue coverall with a patch that said Roy. They bury size and Roddy. Over Dom. I slowed the car to a crawl. Roy did not move. I thought he might be asleep until Rachel leaned forward and said, "Tom, is he breathing?" "Robbie for Downdra." Ellie pressed her face to the window. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "He's not. Has seasons rates." I parked anyway. Something about the station felt wrong, but not in the obvious way. It was too still, like a stage set before the curtain rises. Rachel stayed in the car with Ellie while I walked up to the front and nodded at Roy. His head didn't turn, his chest didn't rise, but something in the air shifted when I passed him, like walking under an unseen wire. Inside, it smelled of motor oil and something sweeter. Not quite perfume, not quite rot. The cash register was one of those old crank types, the kind you'd see in a museum. A calendar hung behind the counter, edges curled and yellowed. The date read October 1971. The clock above it ticked once, then again, then stopped. The hands were frozen at 11:59. I turned back toward the car. That was when I noticed the photo, framed, sitting on a shelf just above the radio. My own face stared back at me. Rachel next to me. Ellie in front, maybe 2 years younger. All of us smiling in front of what looked like this exact gas station. The image had faded, like it had been sitting there for decades. I took it down, turned it over. Nothing written, no date. But the chill that slid through my spine was enough to make me drop it. The glass cracked. Outside, Rachel was calling for me. I came back out and found her holding something in her hand. A receipt, thin and brittle. She had pulled it from the metal trash bin near the pump. It was dated October 31st, 1971. The signature scribbled at the bottom matched her handwriting. Not just vaguely. Exactly. Ellie clutched her costume and looked between us, frowning. "Are we still going to the party?" In undercent. With a common question, Rachel didn't answer. Neither did I. I pumped the gas, just to see. The machine whirred, but the gauge didn't move. The numbers flicked back and forth like they couldn't make up their mind. Eventually, they stopped at 11:59, same as the clock inside. We got back in the car. I told myself we just needed to head back to the main road, get anywhere with a signal. But 5 minutes down the gravel path, the trees parted and I saw it again. The same flickering lights, the same leaning sign, the same blue coveralls. We had returned to the gas station. Rachel let out a sharp breath. I turned the car around, tried the other direction. 15 minutes later, we came back through the fog, and there it was. Only this time, Roy was no longer sitting. He was standing, just behind the pump. Ellie tugged at my sleeve. "Daddy, this looks like home. Is this our house?" "Brop sec." I didn't answer her either. I stopped the car and turned off the engine. Not because I wanted to, but because there was nowhere else to go. Rachel was staring at her hands like they belonged to someone else. Ellie was quiet, leaning against the window, watching the fog roll over the parking lot like it was alive. I popped the trunk. Needed to check something. I told myself maybe we just kept circling the same spot and the car was burning fuel without us noticing. But when I lifted the trunk, I froze. It was full of receipts, all of them identical, printed in the same fading ink. Each one marked, Tom and Rachel, fuel purchase, 11:59 p.m., 31:10, 1,971. I counted them, 20, maybe 30. Each one looked older than the last. Some were stuck together with moisture. One had a child scribble across the corner. Rachel knelt beside me. She didn't ask where they came from. She was shaking. Then she whispered something I didn't expect. "I've been here. E.T." I turned to her. She didn't blink. "I came here with my parents. We were camping near Elkhorn Valley. My mom said we needed gas. They walked into the office and never came out. Easers." She looked at me with a hollow kind of certainty. "I remember this place now, but I don't remember leaving. Thank you having zapped it." Inside the gas station, the lights flickered again. I felt pulled toward it. I don't know why. Maybe I needed answers. Maybe I thought we still had a chance to leave. I stepped through the door and heard the soft click of something powering on. The radio. It sat on the counter, dusty but glowing orange at the dial. A soft voice crackled through, like it had been waiting for me to return. "The Harper family, right on time. Welcome back. Thank you for keeping your promise." "That is Antecus." My heart slammed against my ribs. The voice was not quite human. Too calm. Too smooth. It didn't belong to Roy, or to anyone I could imagine. Rachel stepped in behind me, holding Ellie's hand tight. Her lips were moving, but no sound came out. The clock above the register ticks once. Just once. It is still 11:59. I spin around. Roy is no longer outside. He is inside the station. He stands just behind Ellie, one hand on her shoulder, though she doesn't flinch. She looks up at him, confused but not afraid, and he looks directly into the dashboard camera still recording from the car. His eyes are clouded, gray, like old headlights. I move toward them, but I do not reach them. The fog pushes in through the walls, through the windows, until everything is gone. 1 year later, a ranger in Elkhorn Valley files a strange report. An old Pontiac is found inside a collapsed maintenance shed. The plates match a missing family from decades ago. The car is clean, not rusted, not aged, just misplaced. Inside, the radio clicks on. A single phrase plays on repeat. 11:59. Please return. In the record, locals say the gas station still lights up on Halloween night. From 11 to midnight. Then nothing. Just woods. Some folks claim if you pass through the right fog at the wrong time, you might end up there. And if you do, you better not stop. Because once the clock hits 11:59, you're already home. I'm really glad you've stayed with me this far. Before we move on to the next story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell so you won't miss any of our new videos every single day. Now then, let's continue. The first postcard arrived exactly 1 year after she vanished. No return address, just my name, written in the soft, slanted cursive only Emily used. It said, "Will you come this year?" I'm still waiting. The ink had bled slightly, like it had traveled through time more than rain. She disappeared on Halloween night, 10 years ago. One moment we were leaving the community center, laughing about some kid's Frankenstein costume. The next, she was gone. No scream, no sound, just her purse left on the sidewalk and my life breaking in half. I searched for months. The police did what they could. Her face went up on flyers. Her name slid into the local news cycle. And eventually, it all went quiet. Except for me. I never stopped waiting for Halloween. Because each year, without fail, another postcard would come. Different image on the front every time. Once it was a carousel. Once a candy stand. Once a clock tower I had never seen. But the handwriting was always hers. Familiar. Tender. Slightly rushed. Like she was afraid it might disappear before she finished. Last year, I almost threw it away. Thought maybe it was someone playing a trick. Some sick joke or long-lost relative keeping the wound open. But the postmark was what stopped me. It was faint. Almost rubbed off. But I could make out a town name that didn't exist in any registry. Halden. No state. No zip. Just that name and a faint mountain icon in the stamp's corner. This year, I didn't wait. I packed a small bag, took the next day off work, and drove east into the hills of southern Ohio, aiming toward the edge of the Appalachian line. There was one spot on the map near Green Hollow that didn't list a town name, just a blank patch, like the land had refused to be claimed. By noon on October 31st, I was parked at the base of a narrow trail. Fog drifted low over the grass, thick as smoke. I followed a dirt path uphill, and for a while, I thought I had lost my mind. Then I saw the gate. It was wooden, old but clean, carved with twisting vines and the name, Halden, in raised letters. The air on the other side smelled like apples and burnt sugar. Lanterns lined the streets. Children ran past in costumes, laughing, tossing leaves. I stepped through, and there it was. A town alive with celebration. Small storefronts trimmed with orange lights. A band playing something cheerful in the square. People in full costume, dancing. A woman waved to me from the window of a bakery. Someone handed me a caramel apple without asking my name. It felt like stepping into a dream. Not surreal, just untouched. I walked through the square, past a clock tower stuck at 5, past a row of bicycles parked like it was 1,995. The sky above had turned gold. My footsteps felt too loud. Then I saw her. Emily stood in front of a candy stall, helping a child choose between licorice and sour chews. Her hair was pulled back. She wore the same denim jacket she had the night she vanished. She looked exactly the same. She turned. Her eyes met mine. And she smiled. She ran to me like no time had passed at all. Her arms around my shoulders felt warm and familiar. I held her tighter than I meant to. I'm afraid she might vanish again if I let go. But she didn't. We walked through Halden hand in hand, like we used to. She introduced me to vendors by name, showed me where the library used to be, a train depot, told me stories about the kids who came each year and never grew older. Every person we passed smiled like they had known me forever, like they had been expecting me. Emily said she had no memory of leaving the world we knew, just that one moment she was walking next to me. And the next, she was here, in Halden, a place she had never heard of. but had never wanted to leave. "No one aged," she said. "Not unless they stepped outside the gate after midnight." She asked me to stay. I did not answer right away. Instead, we danced. There was a band in the town square, playing something soft under the glow of paper lanterns. The whole town swayed with the music. Children twirled in costume. Adults clapped along, but none of them ever looked at the clock. We danced until my legs ached. Her breath on my neck. The sound of her laugh. It made something break open inside me, like a dam that had been holding grief too long. She whispered in my ear, "I knew you'd come. I told them you would." They're resisting. The clock in the square struck once, then again. I looked up. 11:58. Her grip on me tightened. Her voice dropped, almost trembling. "You have to decide now." I saw something in her face I had not seen all night. Fear. "If you go now, I will forget you. Halden will erase every part of you. But if you stay," she stopped, swallowing the words, "then you will forget yourself." This faces he had not known were sampling. The lights flickered overhead. The music stuttered and began to loop. A violin phrase repeated too precisely, like a broken record. I turned. One of the lanterns was melting upward, wax dripping into the sky. The bakery sign blurred. The children's laughter slowed, became hollow. The town is slipping. I run. I tear through the gate, past the crooked arch. My legs are heavy, like something is pulling me back. I turn once. She is standing in the square, right where we danced. Her hands are clasped in front of her, her eyes shining. Then she dissolves into fog. I fall. When I wake, it is morning. I am sitting on a wooden bench in the forest clearing, my jacket wet with dew. No gate, no lights, just trees and silence. I check my watch. It is November 1st. My hands tremble as I dig through my coat pocket. Inside is a photograph, a Polaroid, the two of us dancing under the lanterns of Halden, smiling at each other like nothing had ever broken. I keep it with me now, and every year, on October 31st, I return to that clearing. I never see the gate again, but I always wait, because maybe one year, she will remember me first. We used to tell each other ghost stories in the dorms, passing a flashlight between bunk beds like it meant something. Back then, we promised we would always stay in touch. But life drifted. 10 years later, we were four near strangers sitting in a borrowed SUV, chasing one last thrill before everything settled for good. Jason drove. Aaron had the map pulled up even though the GPS barely worked. Malik filmed everything from the back seat, narrating like it was a mockumentary. Sophie mostly stared out the window, quiet but smiling when the rest of us got loud. Asheville had been a mining town, swallowed by time sometime in the 70s. The Halloween challenge promised nothing more than a long night, some local legends, and a forgotten zip code. Stay until sunrise. Capture real footage. Win $500. We thought it sounded easy. But when we crossed the rusted welcome sign, we knew something felt off. The town was too still, not the quiet of sleep, but the hush after something had gone terribly wrong. Every storefront was sealed. Every house boarded shut. No wind, no wildlife, no light anywhere except one place. At the far end of the street, a single house stood with its porch light on, pale yellow, spilling down broken steps, curtains drawn back, door half open. We thought it was part of the setup, like a staging area or control point, maybe even a prank to spook us. Jason laughed and said, "Well, someone's got to be home." Right. They's inticulate. The door creaked when we pushed it open. Inside, the living room looked like it had been preserved in amber. Clean carpet, a low wooden table, a couch with the exact same sunflower print Jason's family used to have. He froze. His voice dropped. This Looks like my parents' house. Thank you for watching. We thought he was joking. But then he pointed out the photo shelf. There was a picture of him at age 8, holding a carved pumpkin. Jason turned around slowly. All right. Which one of you set this up? Hasn't. No one answered. I mean it. Not a single one of us had done anything. Erin started to look uneasy. She walked down the hall to the right, toward the bedroom. Malik went left, filming as he went. Sophie lingered near the stairs, her eyes fixed on a painting by the door. I stayed with Jason. I could tell something about that room was pulling at him. A minute later, Erin called out. Her voice was tight. Guys, the room in here. When we joined her, we saw it. A hospital bed. A framed picture of her mother beside it. The blanket pulled up just like the day Erin said goodbye in real life. She backed away slowly, breathing fast. That's the same robe. The exact robe. My mom wore that the day she didn't finish. Malik's voice came from upstairs. Panicked now. We rushed up and found him in a small guest room. He stood in front of a broken game console on the floor. His hands trembled. I blamed my little brother for this. I never said sorry. He cried for days. I himself. Sophie had gone quiet. We found her in the basement. She stood in front of a wall where a child's painting had been hung. Crayon figures under a crooked sun. Her name in the corner. Signed with shaky letters. She whispered. I drew this when I was 6. That's this house. That's all of us. They were Dak. Jason stumbled into the kitchen and found something I'll never forget. A small blue backpack, scuffed at the corners. He dropped to his knees. My sister's, he said. She had this the day she disappeared. I was 10. She never came home. They gasped today. We tried the front door again. It was locked. The clock on the wall ticked once, then froze, at midnight. We searched every exit, windows, back doors, even the basement hatch. All sealed, not nailed shut, but fused, like the house had decided we were not done yet. Jason pounded the front door until his knuckles bled. Nothing gave. The lights dimmed slightly, then steadied. The air felt heavier, like the ceiling was an inch lower than before. Then we noticed the wallpaper peeling back, one slow strip at a time, revealing photographs underneath. Dozens of them. Family portraits, school pictures, birthday snapshots. But the faces were all smudged. Every single one blurred at the eyes, like a thumb had dragged across the ink. Sophie whispered, They're us. All of us. But we're not looking at the camera. No, so 5, to our end and Dane. A knock came at the door. We ran to check, but no one was there. Only a wooden box on the porch, carved with our names. Inside were folded letters, each one written in our own handwriting, postmarked from dates that never happened. Jason opened his first. It was a letter from his sister, or at least, that is what it claimed. The handwriting was shaky, but real. The paper smelled faintly like lemon gum. He read aloud, You told them I ran away, but I didn't. You said I must have lied, but I didn't. You promised you would keep the truth, and you didn't. It is no way. He collapsed into the nearest chair, the backpack still clutched in his hands. The lights flicker. The walls pulse like breath. The living room is shifting now. It tilts. The ceiling stretches. The floor slides sideways. The furniture drifts upward, as if gravity no longer knows where to fall. Our voices echo wrong. 1 second late, 1 pitch too deep. We are pulled. Each of us drawn to a separate room, not by force, but by some invisible thread tied to guilt. The doors close behind us, soft and final. Mine clicks before I can fight it. In front of me is the blue backpack. Jason's voice is still in my ears, but distant. The room tilts again, slow and swaying. A voice, not quite mine, whispers, If you want to leave, you have to let go. I get. Jason stands in the center of the room, alone. His knees shake. His hands grip the straps of the backpack so tight they turn white. He says nothing. Then, after a long breath, he sets the backpack down. Across the house, we all make our choices. Erin folds the scarf her mother gave her and leaves it on the bed. Malik places the broken game console on the floor, then steps back and lights a match. Sophie tears the drawing in half. Then again. The lights snap off. The house is dark. Then the door creaks open. We step out into the cold, one by one. No one says anything for a while. The street is still empty. The rest of Asheville still silent. But the house behind us looks smaller, like it is shrinking back into itself. We drive. We do not speak until we hit the highway. When we do, we talk about anything else. Traffic. Work. The price of gas. No one mentions what was taken. But something was. Jason cannot remember what his sister looked like. Erin says she can talk about her mom, but it no longer hurts. In fact, it no longer feels real. Malik refuses to touch a video game controller. And Sophie stares at blank pages now. Her hands know the motion, but the pictures never come. A year later, someone posted a video online. Night vision footage of Asheville. In it, there is only one house with the lights on, and the door is still open. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. I truly mean that. If you enjoyed these stories, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. That way, you won't miss the next ones. And once again, thank you for walking this dark road with me tonight.